Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a show where I discuss the political news of the day and I provide my analysis in a way you can understand. Thank you for joining me this episode. I have a few quick housekeeping things. First of all, we are on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify and on YouTube. So if you are listening on one platform, please, and you prefer listening on another, please go do that. Doesn't matter to me. Most of our viewers watch on YouTube. So if that is up your alley, that's fine. I pay so that it's on other platforms. So I want people to take advantage of that. And then there was something else, but I don't remember. So we're just going to move on. The next thing, we have a couple of things to talk about. We're going to talk about what Congress is up to. We're going to talk about the pardoning of Hunter Biden. That's extremely controversial. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court a little bit, and as well as the Trump's new defense secretary pick. He's under pressure to step down. So let's see, where should we begin? Let's start with what Congress is up to. We are in what I described in the last episode as the lame duck session. The lame duck session is the period between the election and the inauguration. It applies to Congress and to the president. But we have another 42 days left of Joe Biden's presidency. We have just under a month left of this Congress that was elected in 2022. So the lawmakers have already been reelected or defeated or retired. So now but they're still in office and still completing their jobs. What are they up to? They have a couple things they need to do before they leave for the Christmas break. There's a government shutdown that will occur on December the 20th, 2024. And if they do not approve new government funding, there will be a full government shutdown. The last government shutdown was in December 2018, although that was a partial government shutdown, not a full government shutdown. The Democrats and Republicans seem most likely to pass what's called a continuing resolution until March of 2025. A continuing resolution just extends government funding at current levels. It's unlikely we're going to see a full bill between now and December the 20th because both sides have not agreed to spending levels or allocations. So they haven't agreed to how much they're going to spend and what they're going to spend it on. If they pass the continuing resolution, that will advantage the GOP because it will give them more control because they're going to have full control of the government in 42 days. But that will put a critical deadline within the first 100 days of the Trump administration. If they pass a full budget, which would be as if they were going to fund the government until September. The next fight would not be until September, but it would be a Dem-influenced bill because Democrats are still in control of the Senate. And Republicans really want to move forward on immigration and tax cuts in a full, which passing a continuing resolution would benefit them, or not passing a continuing resolution would benefit that, but that is a big opportunity that I don't think Trump will want to pass up and let Biden get one more budget. And if they do pass a full bill, that could imperil Speaker Mike Johnson's reelection because he has hardliners in his party. There's quite a few of them who do not want to have government funding continued at current levels, which was approved in the beginning of the year, back in March. That was because it took so long to approve this budget. One thing they're also going to try to do is pass disaster aid. They're only going to pass $30 to $40 billion. That's what Senator Kennedy said, which is outrageous if you ask me. Only $30 to $40 billion, considering how much money we spent to Israel and Ukraine. And this would be to help people who in this country who have been affected by hurricanes Helene and Milton. The Biden administration has requested $90 billion, but I don't think they're going to get the full amount. Johnson was also unanimously picked to be the GOP candidate for Speaker, so it looks like, for now, a Speaker fight in 2025, like the one we saw at the beginning of this Congress in January 2023, is unlikely. The Senate GOP are meeting with Trump's picks, and Trump did pick a new FBI director, Kash Patel, who is a controversial figure. He wouldn't take office until September of 2020 or until 2027. Because that's when Chris Wray's term ends. Chris Wray's he's the current FBI director, and Christopher Wray was picked by Donald Trump in his first term after he fired Jim Comey. And Elon and Vivek have met with the House and Senate GOP. They are trying to figure out ways to make government more efficient. And one of those things is to end remote work for the government. If you ask me, that would be less efficient, not more, but whatever. And the House is considering a release of the Matt Gaetz report. It did reject it. They rejected to release the report. It was mostly on a party line vote. And this would have been important because Matt Gaetz might run for another higher office, whether that be Florida governor, maybe a Senate position, who knows. So that is a shame that report did not get released. So that is the most immediate thing that Congress needs to work on, is what they're doing in their last few weeks. Because Democrats are going to try to get as many judges approved as possible. They want to beat Donald Trump's first term record, which I think was 234 judges. Right now they're at like 218 or 220. So they want to race through and fill as many as possible. And speaking of the new Congress, it is official, it will be the thinnest majority in recent memory. Democrats will have 215, Republicans will have 220. And considering Matt Gaetz has already resigned his seat, it's 215 to 219. And then there will be, once two of Trump's picks, Mike Walz and Elise Stefanik, they will resign from their seats once they are confirmed by the Senate. There's no reason that they won't be. So it'll be down to 215 to 217, at least until April 1st, which is when the special elections are going to be held to fill the two seats in Florida with Matt Gaetz and Mike Walz, and then Elise Stefanik, that has not been determined yet. So that's going to be really interesting. It's going to make the numbers very chaotic. When Trump first entered office, he had a decent majority that Republicans had. They had, I think, 240 seats, maybe about 235. So they had plenty of seats. Now they have a very, very thin majority. And if leveraged right, Democrats have a powerful opportunity to wield their status as a minority party. While there are 13 Democrat seats, Trump Democrat seats, so this would be seats that Democrats hold that Trump won, they might need to break from Democrats. There are 4 in Harris districts for Republicans that won their seat in a district that Kamala Harris won. So there is some flexibility there, although those members are proven survivors. If Democrats can pick off 1 to 3 representatives, depending on how many vacancies there are, they will wield the power. However, they're unlikely to take the majority during the session because they need 2 to 3 to retake it, and they would need to pick up extra seats, which would only happen through special elections, and it would have to be under a special circumstance. Like, for example, in the last Congress, George Santos, he resigned. He got replaced by Democrats, so there was a pickup of 1. In this past election, 7 out of 16 Republicans were in Biden districts, and they were knocked out. And then 2 out of 5 Democrats in Trump districts were knocked out. So, as you can see, that they were able to pick off some of their seats. So that is something that the parties will be targeting in the next election, because there is a Republican in the White House. It is unlikely that there's going to be a red wave. Usually it goes the other way around. When your party is in the White House and you have a first term and you are on your first or second term, and you're encountering a midterm, there is a backlash, a bit of buyer's remorse. So I would expect one against Donald Trump, just like there was in 2018, and Obama faced it in 2014 and 2010. So Democrats in the Trump district should be fine. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will lose their seats. Republicans that are in districts that Kamala Harris won, they could be in jeopardy, although they are longtime incumbents. Moving on, we're going to talk about the Hunter Biden pardon. This was extremely controversial. This came out right before the release of last week's episode, but it was after I already recorded it, and it wasn't worth making its own episode. So on December 1st, in the evening, Joe Biden announced that he was going to pardon Hunter Biden for any crimes that he may have committed between January 1st, 2014 and December 1st, 2024. That's an 11-year pardon. That's an 11 years. And that is including the time that Joe Biden was vice president, and Hunter Biden was working on Burisma Holdings, which was a Ukrainian energy and gas company. And there's a prosecutor that was investigating the company that Hunter was working on. So Joe Biden, when he was vice president, said, to the Ukrainian government, you need to fire that prosecutor, or you're not going to be getting any military aid. Does this sound familiar to what Donald Trump did when he was president? You're not going to be getting any military aid. The prosecutor was fired. So, is there corruption? Possibly. It's certainly a coincidence, but if Hunter Biden did anything wrong during that time, he's good. He's free to go because he was pardoned of all crimes, any crime that he may have committed. And it was previously clear that Joe Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son Hunter, although that was obviously political. If he had done that during the election campaign, that would have been extremely bad. 50% of Americans have disapproved, according to YouGov, of this. 34% have approved. The majority of the 34% that approved are Democrats. And in response, the media has floated that Trump may go further with his attempts to pardon the January 6th protesters. And I would say that is definitely on the table now. What is definitely not on the table, though, as John Fetterman has suggested, he suggested pardoning Donald Trump. And Donald Trump now that Hunter Biden has been pardoned. But the problem is Trump's conviction was at the state level while Biden's was at the federal. So the only thing that Biden could do is dismiss the classified documents case and the January 6th case, which I believe the special counsel Jack Smith have already said he was going to drop. And the last thing about Hunter Biden is that Biden was convicted because he lied on a federal background check about drug use in 2018 when he was trying to get a gun. If you've used drugs, if you've abused it, you're not allowed to have a firearm. And then he was also committed tax evasion in 2016 to 2019. And it was craziest. One of those years was while his dad was the vice president. So much for paying your fair share, right? So, lastly about Biden is the Biden admin is considering wide clemency for lots of people that were convicted of crimes, mostly people that were arrested on nonviolent drug offenses. A senior official in the administration, including Karine Jean-Pierre, has said that there will be more news coming, and there's 42 days left in the Biden administration, so there's plenty of time to pardon people. Moving on, we're going to move on. This is the last thing. We have two more things to talk about. We're going to talk about the defense secretary that Trump has nominated, Pete Hegseth, I believe is how you say his name. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor. He did serve in the military. As far as I know, he does not have much experience in the federal government. Trump has said he has confidence in him amid Hegseth's sexual misconduct allegations and rumored drinking problem. So far, Trump thinks that he's going to be confirmed. Trump, J.D. Vance, and Mr. Hegseth, I guess, is he going to be the new Pete in the administration? They've all denied that he has done wrongdoing. He is going to the FBI for a background check. That is procedure. There's nothing unusual about that. That was reported by CNN. Now, USA Today, they said that the nomination is doomed. And there is some evidence for that. They can only afford to lose 3. There was a whistleblower report that alleged that he was forced out when he was a leader of 2 nonprofit veterans groups because of drinking, misconduct, and mismanagement of funds, as well as intoxication on the job. Those things do go together, and usually these allegations don't appear out of thin air. Do they? Do I think this happened? I don't know. I don't know enough details about it. Yeah, we definitely don't want this guy in charge of the Department of Defense, considering the defense budget is almost $1 trillion now. So I do hope the FBI looks into this. And considering these allegations, this is very, very serious. Even putting some of the sexual misconduct stuff aside, which is serious, don't get me wrong. But the fact that he was accused of mismanagement of funds and intoxication on the job, if he gets in and this is discovered, this is going to be a major scandal of the Trump administration. That would be my prediction, if he gets in and this is true. They're floating other people, Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Joni Ernst, who is a Republican from Iowa. The Governor DeSantis and Senator Ernst, they both have military experience, they both have government experience. I think they would be a good Secretary of Defense, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what their exact policies are. If they're going to go with Mr. Hegseth, they can only afford to lose 3 votes. That's not a lot of votes. If they go forward with the confirmation before Joe Biden leaves office, they can only afford to lose 2 because Vice President Kamala Harris will break the tie. But the Republicans are probably going to wait until after, and they're going to let J.D. Vance break the tie. So they could afford to lose 3, but they cannot afford to lose 4. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court heard arguments about a ban on Tennessee law that would ban transgender surgery and treatment for minors. So this would include surgeries. This would also include things such as hormone therapy, things like that. Those would not be allowed. They are not allowed under this Tennessee law. 20 other states have something similar on the books. And if the law is struck down, then that means that transgender youth, this only applies to youth, by the way, will be able to have these operations and these surgeries. But if the law is upheld, then that means in these states they were not going to be allowed. As far as I know, if they've ruled in favor of this law, it's not going to be a nationwide thing. The Supreme Court is not able to legislate. And Chief Justice Roberts said that he has hinted that it should be the legislature that makes these decisions, not the Supreme Court. So if you ask me, that could be taken either way. That makes me think he's going to vote to uphold the law. And a ruling is expected in May or June of 2025. This was brought on by transgender youth's families as well as the Biden administration. Once they leave office, I assume that this case is going to be the Trump administration is of course going to abandon this. There's no way that they're going to stick around with this, but they are going to also have to consider the families' cases as well, their complaints. The challengers are saying that sex discrimination violates the 14th Amendment, and non-transgender people can be treated with puberty blockers, especially children, but transgender people cannot. This, if you ask me, is not a good argument because this applies to both transgender men and transgender women, or in this case, transgender boys and transgender girls. So this is not a good argument. I think this is going to be doomed. The law is going to be upheld. This challenge is not going to work, considering the court that we have, and it just doesn't make sense to allow minors to have gender transitions. It just doesn't. Once they get over 18, that's a different story, but not while they're under their parents' supervision. They need to be able to make that decision once they're older. Lastly, there was a similar law that was upheld in Idaho in April of 2024. It was not blocked by the Supreme Court, and that vote was 6-3. So precedent has shown that the Supreme Court is going to let this law stay up in place. So if anyone is affected by this law or wants to see it struck down, I would not be too optimistic about it, although the likelihood is you already know about it. You already know that. Alrighty, well, thank you for joining me for this episode. We're going to be back next week on December the 16th, and by then we should have a pretty clear idea of what is going on in Congress. If there's not been a resolution yet, then we're going to be talking about a government shutdown and what that might do to the economy as well as to the people who are affected by it. But I do not expect a government shutdown. Anyway, thank you for joining, and thank you for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.